Welcome to another segment of Sage Advice. This is the segment where me, Greg Tito, talks to Jeremy Crawford.
Hi, everyone.
About some fun rules that you want to know about that you may not realize are in the books that you have read 1,000 times. That's not what all Sage Advice segments are about. That's what this one is about. So Sage Advice is where we get into talking about all the different rules and what they are, as well as the philosophy behind them, both advice at the table as well as around the game itself. There are so many rules that are within our books that many people ask questions about that you're just like, hey, it's right here. Check it out.
So this segment is just going to be me reading the Players Handbook.
Yes, Reading Comprehension 101.
We're going to start on page 5.
Okay.
Introduction. No. No, I thought it would be great for us to, and we could potentially do this as a series, just take the core rule books and start paging through them and just see what is in here that is a gem that people often forget. We might even sometimes forget that they're there.
Yeah.
I honestly occasionally will come by something that I even wrote and we're like, that's helpful.
Yeah, I could have used that yesterday.
Thank you, past Jeremy, for doing that. Or, whoever else on the team might have done it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that even those of us working on the game occasionally are like, oh my goodness, there are treasures in here.
And I mean, we're joking a little bit, but there is definitely a lot of material within these 3 core rule books that we reference often, but when's the last time you read it cover to cover, right?
Right.
If ever, right? So here's a way for us to kind of show what's in there and then play with them and use them hopefully in your games going forward.
Now, I'm especially excited to do this tour of the Dungeon Master's Guide because more than any of the other 3 books, that one is wall-to-wall goodies, many of which people don't know are in there. But I thought it would be good for us to start, though, at the beginning, which is the Player's Handbook, and just see what are some goodies there that people might not know they're there. Even if they have read them before, might not remember how they actually work. And maybe you and I will even discover something where, again, we're like, whoa.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was there.
Yes. So I'm not going to start reading the book aloud. This is not audible. Though I've been asked before if we could do an audible version of the PH.
I would love to have a story time with Jeremy Crawford just to listen to your voice.
Oh, thank you. Do you know, back in college, I actually did do... for a while, one of my part-time jobs is I did do some audio versions of some of Shakespeare's plays.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, where I went through and read, the whole play, doing every character, and I even had voices for different characters.
Sweet.
I sure hope no one finds those tapes.
I think we've got a future side project. I'll read the stage directions. You read all the characters. We'll do it.
So yes, I have done it, but it was many, many years ago.
Exeunt with a bear.
Yes. Well done, sir. And by the way, I love torturing Philip, my husband, by saying that, but only about one person exiting, because Philip, for many years, was a set designer, so has spent years working on the stage. And it drives him insane because exeunt refers to multiple people exiting the stage. So that is some high-level theater nerdery.
Right.
And so I love to poke him by, there'll be one person in a situation, and I will just refer to that one person as exeunt pursued by a bear. And he's like, no, it's multiple people.
That is some good banter.
Yes, yes. All right, so right in this introduction that I promise not to read in its entirety, we already have some rules. And there's a high-level discussion in the introduction of the Player's Handbook of things like the D&D multiverse. It even talks about the different worlds that are part of the D&D multiverse. I can look right here on this page and I see Greyhawk, Dragonlance, Forgotten Realms, Mystara, Darksun, Eberron, and more.
Yeah.
But that's more of the story side of D&D. There's also an overview on what the heck is a D20, how does advantage and disadvantage work. I'm not going to dwell on any of those things, partly because advantage and disadvantage, which is a juicy rules topic, that's delved into later in the Player's Handbook in greater depth. Mm-hmm. what I want to pause on is actually 2 rules that are hiding out in the introduction of the Players Handbook that don't actually get restated significantly anywhere else in the core books. Yet, they are important to understand often when you're interpreting many other rules in the game. So I'm not sure even you knew that there are 2 important rules hiding out here in the book's first few pages.
I think I want to guess this is specific beats general.
Ooh, nice. You know it.
I do. I've been talking to you for a couple of years.
That's true.
Yeah.
So yes, the first of those 2 rules is that specific beats general. And this rule, we've talked about it before on this very podcast, really is important for a person to understand when they start getting into the kind of wondrous forest of different options in the game. Because they'll read like a general combat rule, and then they'll get to a spell that seems to contradict the general combat rule. And that's why this rule is so important, that the more specific thing always overrides the more general thing if they contradict each other.
Right.
We sometimes refer to that as the game being exceptions-based. We throw that term around a lot, and I'm guilty of this. It's kind of game design jargon that is often meaningless to people who hear it, and that's actually one reason why we don't use that phrase in the book, instead saying the specific thing beats the general thing when they don't agree with each other.
And the idea of that is that, there is what the combat happens or things that happen within the world, but part of what makes D&D classes and characters special is that they get to do things that the other people in the world don't generally get to do, and this is why it's a fun game.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah. It means essentially the game is built to accommodate surprise.
Oh, yeah. That's a good way to put it too.
That we want to be able to create game mechanics that introduce intentionally something that subverts your expectations. That's one reason why the sort of specific beats general is such an important principle, not only in D&D, but actually in most games, because there are many card games that have a rule like this. There are many board games that, you'll read the rule book, and at some point there will be this phrase that says, if one of the cards that, it might be an adventure board game you're playing where there's an event deck, and it says, if any of the cards in the event deck ever contradicts a rule in this rule book, the card is right.
Yeah.
And that is just another example of this principle of the more specific thing beats the general thing, so the game can surprise you.
There is a game called Flux, which is essentially specific beats general, the game.
Yes.
That's the entire concept behind it.
Exactly. I'm glad you thought of that. I just recently was going through my absurdly large board game collection and came across my copy of Cthulhu Flux.
Yes. And they flavored it in many, many, many different ways, but in general, it is just the fact that whatever card is on the table is the rules that are in effect right now.
Yeah, and that is actually one of the hallmarks of modern games. This is as opposed to like ancient games like chess, where the game has surprise built in.
Yeah,
this thing that will pop up that says that rule you thought you knew, well, I'm going to change it, or I'm going to completely ignore it, and here the speaker is this rule that just popped up and changed the state of things.
But not to derail, but in some ways, chess, it does have exceptions with the knight is the only piece that can jump over other pieces.
Yes.
And such, the kings can castle, and that breaks the general rule that you can't move 2 pieces during one turn and things like that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Over time, those rules, and the whole history of chess is a fascinating subject into itself, and that it isn't a game that was just designed and done. It's been something that's been modified and changed and had many additions over the years, and there were many fights over which edition was the better one.
Chess edition wars.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, I feel like we just got another Sage Advice topic.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
but yes. What's the second rule that's in the introduction?
Can you see what it is?
No, I can't.
What's your guess? I want to see if you're.
I did so well. I don't want to take another stab.
So this next one is not as important from sort of a high-level game design standpoint, but it is still really important, and it is amazing how many people don't know it's here. And that is the rule that if you ever have a fraction in D&D, you round down. Pretty much every single Unearthed Arcana we release, if we have any kind of calculation in it that involves that can result in a fraction, someone will ask us, do I round up or round down? Showing, and this is actually why I refer to this rule being hidden, because that playtest feedback shows to me a lot of people don't know this rule is here.
Yeah.
And we put it here because we thought, oh, this means we won't have to say it over and over and over again. Frankly, this is one of those things where if I could do it over again, I might just have us say round down every single time we mean for you to do it, because we honestly don't put you in the situation of producing a fraction that often. And usually when you create a general rule, you want it to be about something that's coming up a lot. And I think our game is actually good at sort of shielding you from fractions so well that actually having this as a general rule is sometimes not actually that helpful.
I see. Yeah, and it is a change, though, too. That's the other thing, is that previous editions...
So 4th edition also you rounded down.
Right, but 3rd you didn't.
I don't remember, actually.
I think you rounded up, which...
I'd have to go look.
Or there were some cases you'd rounded up and some cases you rounded down. So I think the level of confusion you might be experiencing with people is just that addition problem, where like people are and we've talked about this before on Sage Advice, how people think there's a rule that's there, but is actually from 4 editions ago.
Right. Plus, I don't expect anyone, especially if they're brand new to D&D, to come to this big book and to, like, when they think, all right, so this game that's about like dragons and I can play a fighter or a wizard or a cleric or something else and dwarves and elves, I bet there's a rule in the introduction of the book about fractions.
Yes.
So I don't blame anyone for for missing this, and I dwell on it because actually it just sort of I often like in these segments to sort of give people a view behind the curtain.
Yeah.
This is probably something that if I could do it over again, I am the one who put this here on this page. I'm like, well,
maybe you should have just copy and pasted it and put it in a few instances where refractions would actually occur, like in multi-classing and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
The thing is we even do tell you in some places, so we
remind you.
Yeah. So we're not even consistent. Where sometimes we remind you, and then other times we don't.
Well, we're reminding you now.
Yes. Round down,
everybody.
Yes. If the game doesn't tell you, to round up and is silent about whether you round down, well then round down.
Makes sense to me.
All right, so that's it for rules in the book's introduction. Look at this. We made it through the introduction.
Sweet. I think we got time for maybe like 1 or 2 more if you want to pull them out.
All right, so Chapter 1 of the Player's Handbook, step-by-step characters. This is telling you how to make your character. This has a number of rules in it. Most of them we can fly right over because many people, once they've played D&D even once, this stuff just gets right into their bones. They get introduced here to their character's ability scores, choosing a class, choosing a race. You get introduced to the concept of proficiencies, but then we hit the proficiency bonus rule. Now, this is a rule that appears again later in the Player's Handbook, but we make sure you know right away. Here's how the proficiency bonus works. It's this number you get to add whenever you make a roll for something that you're proficient in, but also both here and then in the section later in the book that you're pointed to, you're told, and this is crucial, sometimes people forget it, you can never add your proficiency bonus to a roll more than once. So if let's say you're in a situation, and I don't know if you knew this, let's say you have proficiency with the piano, and you also have proficiency in the performance skill, and you're doing a piano performance.
Right.
Do you get to add your proficiency twice?
You do not.
Well, this is a rhetorical question. Yeah. I already told you the answer.
You did already. Yeah, I know. You do not, except if you're a rogue.
Well, then, yes, if you have expertise, then you get to double it.
But that's specific beats general.
Yes, exactly. And so, but I know there are people who, because they might have missed this rule, would think that in that situation they get to add their proficiency bonus twice.
What if you're using your thieves' tools that you're proficient in to play the piano that you are performing to persuade someone in order to, I don't know. I'm losing my own thing. But yeah, no, there's no concept where you can continually add things based on how good you are because of a combination of skills.
Right, exactly. Yeah, unless you have some special ability like the rogue's expertise, your proficiency bonus gets added to the roll just once.
And this was a really smart addition to the game for 5th edition because it, and just the proficiency bonus in general, in that it was a really good way to model advancement for every single character class out there.
Yes. Yeah, and that was I can still remember when the light bulb went off over the head of Rodney Thompson, who was a member of the design team at the time.
Shout out to Rodney.
Yeah, he had the great idea of unifying the sort of proficiency progression, and we explored it, and it turned into a very important piece of character progression.
Yeah, because in the past you'd have characters who, the wizard would get better at certain things, and the wit fighter would get better at certain things, and it was very difficult to keep that all centered. But this is just one single rule. Every class gets their proficiency bonus, and it updates through level. And basically, it's the one major thing that changes throughout leveling up.
And that also made it possible for us to predict much better where the game's math was going to go over the course of those 20 levels of play.
Right.
Knowing, all right, this number has this fixed range. And so that actually then helped us solve some other problems behind the scenes in the design.
Excellent.
Now, here in the character creation chapter, I would say the most missed rule, not only in this chapter, but actually one of the most missed rules in this entire book.
Wow.
Is lurking here. And that's on us. We presented it in a way, it's almost too matter of fact. Like, there are sometimes where we will be a little too casual about how we write a rule. Like, we need to ring some bells.
Bong, yes. Bong, listen to this. Heading. Yeah.
Clash some symbols.
Look here.
Important. Because here in this chapter, in the section on choosing your equipment, there is, for any D&D player, especially somebody who's been playing for years, something that seems very prosaic for D&D, armor class. Hiding in this little section on putting together your character's armor class is a crucial rule about armor class in 5th edition. And that is, if 2 or more things in the game give you different ways to calculate your armor class, you use only one of them. You do not get to add them all together.
Right.
So if you put on a suit of armor, which gives you an armor class calculation, and you're a barbarian who has your unarmored defense ability, you don't get to do both.
Right.
Or you cast the mage armor spell, etc. There are a variety of things in the game that give you different ways to calculate your armor class. And no matter how many of those different calculations you're given, you always get to use only one. And you get to pick the one that you want to use. We assume you're going to pick the best one.
Right.
I hope you do.
Unless there's a specific story reason you wanted to be like, no, I'm going to use my my natural armor that's less important,
Right.
I guess. But,
Right.
You have that choice.
Yeah. And I had no idea when we were putting together this book that this rule would end up being the snag that it has ended up being, enough that we now, in a lot of our, any Unearthed Arcana in the last few years where we give you a new armor class calculation, we will usually put in now a rule tip that says, hey, if you get more than one AC calculation, you get to use only one.
And I think you and I have even done an entire Sage Advice segment on armor class calculations because of this very reason. It was one of the impetuses between creating this segment was like, hey, we need to be able to remind people of these lesser known things that we didn't bang the gong about well enough in the text itself.
Yeah, exactly. And it's why also in the Sage Advice Compendium, that PDF on our website, there is a big section I wrote on calculating your armor class, because we realized with all the questions we've gotten, this really just sort of hey, this how you do your AC. See ya, bro. I mean, because we were so casual about it.
Follow your bliss, man.
Yeah. I was just a little too casual when putting this rule here.
Understood. All right, well, we're on page what right now?
We are on page 14.
Page 14, and we've already covered 4 specific things that people may have overlooked throughout their career with D&D 5th edition. So,
and in fact, we know they have, given the questions I see every week on Twitter. It's funny. the three things we've talked about just at the very beginning of the PH, over 5 years into the edition, still trip people up.
Well, we're excited to use this segment to just remind you of these things, and hopefully through that we'll get less of those questions. But you never know.
So it's funny. I've gotten to the point where the frequency of those questions, rather than it feeling like a drag to me, I more and more see the silver lining in it because it's a sign that our community is constantly growing.
That's a very good point, right?
And so we have people who are brand new to the hobby coming, every week. And so occasionally, people will ask, "Oh God, Jeremy, if you had it," or even people on the team will be like, "Oh my gosh, this question again." And for me, it's always like, but let's remember, it's because it's awesome. People are coming and want to play D&D. And so it's really it's the position anyone who is like a teacher or, is a fan of something and they want to share this thing they love with other people. Part of that is sometimes, repeating ourselves so that new people can share this hobby with us that we all love.
I couldn't agree more. And it is a testament to the fact that more and more Players Handbooks are sold each year that 5th edition has come out. And it is a unique surprise to me every single time I hear about that statistic, and it points to that fact that people will continually have questions because it hasn't been 5 years for them. They might have just got their first Player's Handbook yesterday.
Yeah. To many people, this book just came out.
Exactly. Yeah, because they just discovered it, and we are very, very happy for those of you who did.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, Jeremy, for all those questions, how can people get in touch with you?
Jeremy E. Crawford on Twitter. That is the best place to reach me. I'm not always able to respond, but as evidenced actually by our conversation here, I read as many of the questions as possible. And even if I don't have a chance to answer them on Twitter, they influence not only my thinking about how we present our rules and where we're headed with the game, but also the teams, because I share the insights and also sometimes the questions themselves with other members of the team. And we ponder, what can we do in the future to make the on-ramps to our game smoother and to make it even more fun for everybody, once they're here.
That combined with the playtest data and surveys that we have out there for all the unearthed arcana, which you mentioned many times during this segment, it's a wealth of feedback, and we really appreciate it, and we use it
all the time.
Excellent, awesome. Well, thank you. We'll do this more because, as you said, we've only 14 pages in, and we've got a lot more to go in the Player's Handbook alone to find rules that are worth reminding folks about. So, thank you very much. We'll be back with more fun stuff coming up on the next segment.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. We done. We out. With 6 minutes over, apologies to those of you who are here for Binwin Plays. We are about to start hosting them as soon as we are done here. Go watch and have all the fun you can with them. This has been a really great time here on Dragon Talk, and we'll be back with more fun stuff. I'll be out next week. Shelly Mazzanoble will be hosting along with Kate Welch, so tune in for that next Friday. All right. Thanks, everybody.